Again, welcome to the 2025 Stanley Cup Final. As you all know, the final step in the quest for the most storied trophy in all of sports. And this year, a rematch between two terrific teams that a year ago treated us to a most memorable Stanley Cup Final. This is only the second time we'll have seen a rematch like this in the last 40 years. The last one, as I think you may recall, was in 2008-2009, Detroit and Pittsburgh. So first off, congratulations to Western Conference champion Edmonton Oilers, Daryl Cates, Jeff Jackson, Stan Bowman, Chris Knobloch, and Connor McDavid, and all of the Oilers players who have returned the franchise to the final for the second straight season. And congratulations to the defending Stanley Cup champions and Eastern Conference champion Florida Panthers, Vinny Viola, Matt Caldwell, Bill Zito, Paul Maurice, Alexander Barkov, and the Panthers players who have reached the final for a third straight year and are obviously seeking to repeat as Stanley Cup champion. When Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly and I met with you at this time last year, I began my remarks not by giving you my opinion, but rather by noting what many of you in the media had said about the 2023-24 season, that it might have been the best ever, and we obviously agreed. But the way Bill and I and everybody at the league and our clubs operate, pretty much immediately after the final buzzer of Game 7 last June, we all focused on one thing: how are we going to build on what had just occurred? And this was the answer. Utah became the newest hockey-crazed market, selling out every game for the inaugural season in Salt Lake City. Ryan and Ashley Smith accomplished incredible things in a remarkably short time frame, culminating, obviously, with the recent announcement of the team name, the Utah Mammoth. We returned to historic Wrigley Field for the Winter Classic, this time with a twist. We played on New Year's Eve. We then had the Four Nations face-off, which captured the sports world's imagination, produced tremendous interest, particularly in Canada and the United States, and reminded everyone that nothing in international best-on-best compares with NHL players competing on the world stage. Then, on to a Stadium Series games in Columbus 9 days later, which drew nearly 95,000 fans to Ohio Stadium. Think about that, 95,000 fans at a hockey game in Columbus. If I would have suggested that 10 or 20 years ago, you would have thought that was impossible. And then we all went along for a fabulous ride on the Grade 8 chase. Alex Ovechkin's incredible pursuit and historic eclipsing of a record that many believed was unbreakable. We then had the usual down-to-the-wire scramble that ensued for the final playoff berths. And that was followed by the usual customary thrilling madness of the best first round in postseason sports, complete with comebacks that had to be seen to be believed. It should be no surprise that all of that enabled us not to just set another worldwide attendance record, but to draw more than 23 million fans to NHL games for the first time. And let me briefly touch upon what transpired in the first three rounds that created incredible excitement and entertainment. This is only the third time in almost 3 decades that goals per game are averaging more than 6. There have been no sweeps through 3 rounds, the 5th time since 1987, when all rounds for the first time went best of 7. There have been 184 third-period goals scored through the 80 games, second most in history, and 29 have been tying or go-ahead goals in the last 10 minutes, and this for only the third time. And let me mention a couple of more things before we take your questions. In early April, we announced another landmark 12-year Canadian media rights deal with Rogers. our longtime terrific partner. Thank you to Rogers for your confidence in and support of us. We appreciate all you do, as well as PEWHL Sports. We also thank Amazon Prime Video, which took over the Monday night games in Canada and introduced Coast to Coast on Thursday nights. And thank you as well to Warner Brothers Discovery, specifically TNT, which will be carrying the final this year in the United States. I must also thank ESPN, which will have a robust presence at this final, and covered and promoted our games so well, as they always do, again this season. Thanks, as always, to our fans, the most passionate in all of sports, many of whom are watching us right now on the NHL Network, NHL.com, and the NHL YouTube channel. And we are excited about the second season of Face Off on Amazon Prime, which will air in the fall after wrapping up filming during this Stanley Cup Final series. This morning, we announced a global technology partnership with Sony, which joins the stellar roster of more than 80 corporate partners who make it possible for us to do everything we do. Through our Industry Growth Fund, a partnership with the NHL Players Association, we continue to support initiatives that inspire and engage the next generation of players and fans. And during the 24-25 NHL season, we funded 61 NHL club programs that brought hockey to communities that we serve, including supporting more than 40,000 youth participants who skated through our Learn to Play and First Shift programs. Finally, just before our season began, the hockey world, our league, and in particular the Columbus Blue Jackets, were devastated by the tragic loss of Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau. The NHL family will continue to celebrate and remember the lives of two people who quite simply represented the best in our game. And with that, and with Bryce at our side for the fourth straight final to convey our remarks in American Sign Language, Bill and I will be happy to take your questions.
Once again, raise your hand if you want to ask a question. We can start in the front with Josh Clipperton from the CP.
Gary, just wondering what you can tell us about collective bargaining agreement negotiations, and how would you characterize this round of talks compared to other rounds of talks in the past?
No comparison. I think we are having very constructive, professional, cordial dialogue. We started a little bit later than we had anticipated for a variety of reasons on both sides, so I don't have an announcement to make today that we have a deal, but we have more than a year to go, and I think we're in really good shape, having really good discussions. I think that's a testament to Marty Walsh and Ron Hainsey and the people at the Players Association who have been working tirelessly with us, whether it's Hockey Fights Cancer with the V Foundation or Four Nations. I think we're in a really good place in terms of our relationship.
Over on the right, Stephen.
Steve Warno, Associated Press. Gary, with the Four Nations, with the Olympics coming up next year, how do you guys as a league sort of take advantage of the momentum going on with this many people watching hockey at this point?
I think the combination of everything we're doing and all our tentpole events and all of our collaborative efforts are intended to make people more aware, to engage our existing fans even more, and to make sure that casual sports fans who may not be hockey fans get interested and perhaps take a look at us. We saw dramatic numbers in terms of viewership for Game 7 of this matchup last June, and we saw similar numbers particularly in the final game during Four Nations. I think that all bodes well for the continued growth of the game.
Back to the left, front row.
Stephen Sandor from Post Media. Gary, there's no doubt that this arena has been transformative to this franchise in this city. Just down the highway in Calgary, we're looking at a new arena in a couple of years. What's your feeling on the status of that project, and how excited are you to see that new building open?
I think it was essential that the Flames and actually the city of Calgary needed a new event center, a new arena, and I think it can be transformative just as it's been here in Edmonton. I mean, you look at this arena, you look at the ice district, and I believe that the plans in Calgary are equally exciting, and people in Calgary, whether or not you're a Flames fan, should be really excited about it.
Front right, Chris.
Chris Johnson from The Athletic and TSN. Gary, I'm just wondering, can you clarify where things are at with regards to Russian players and the Olympics next year?
Why don't you answer the question?
Well, as of right now, and I don't expect it to change, the IOC and the IIHF has made an announcement that there won't be a Russian team participation in the Winter Olympics. So at this point in time, we don't expect Russian participation.
Greg, on the left.
Greg Wyshynski, ESPN. I was wondering if there was an update on the potential for opening up an expansion process for cities like Houston and Atlanta.
You can answer that one too.
Look, we've gotten a lot of interest in people and markets who want to host NHL cities, and we take a lot of meetings about them. We've decided we're not going to engage in a formal expansion process, but if somebody wants to essentially apply for an expansion franchise and has all the requisite elements that we would look for in an expansion franchise, we would raise it with the Board of Governors, see if they have any interest in it. There are some people we've talked to more than others, but there's a lot of interest, which I think we're gratified by.
Back to the right, Pierre.
Gary, any update on your future as commissioner? You know, there have been a lot of rumblings over the last year about a potential succession plan. I'm just wondering where that is now.
The rumblings seem to all emanate from you. I'm not rumbling. There's nothing new to report. I continue to love what I do. I continue to be energized, and I do acknowledge that age at some point, I suppose, can become a factor. But as I sit here today with you, it's not. Sorry to disappoint.
On the left, Marty.
Hi. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Bettman. Marty Klinkenberg from the Globe and Mail.
It's tough in the lights. Maybe that's a function of age. I don't know.
I don't look any better if you could see me anyway.
Right.
This is a question about Hockey Canada.
Yes.
If the players are exonerated, will they be able to come back and play?
We have said continuously that we are going to not make any comments about what's going on. We're going to let the judicial process do what the judicial process has to do, and at that point we'll decide what, if anything, we need to do. We want to respect the process, but we'll make one thing continuously clear. Every time I've ever been asked about this, what has been alleged is abhorrent, disgusting, and shouldn't be tolerated.
Second row on the left.
Hi, Gary. Jolene Latimer with The Score. In the NHLPA's player poll this year, one of the questions was about PEWHL rules and which rules they would like to see in the league. About 30% of players said they would like to see the jailbreak rule in the league. I'm just curious how much attention you're paying to the innovation in the women's game and whether it's realistic we would ever see a rule change like that.
Well, 70% didn't, but we try to pay attention to everything that's going on in the hockey world. What's great is that the PW's off to a terrific start, and we try to be as supportive as we can, particularly promotionally, but we like the way our game is being played right now. We don't think we need to tinker with the rules.
On the aisle on the right, fourth row.
Hi, Ryan Kennedy from the Hockey News. Question could be for Gary, could be for Bill. With the NCAA eligibility changes, we're seeing a lot of players move in different ways in the development leagues, and I'm curious if there's any appetite, perhaps in the new CBA, to change the rule regarding CHL players leaving for the pros early. Obviously, right now, they have to exhaust their eligibility. Could we see teenagers leave the CHL early for the pros?
You can answer that.
So, I mean, they don't have to exhaust their eligibility. Obviously, what we have is an agreement with the CHL currently that if an 18 or 19-year-old drafted player who signed isn't good enough to play in the NHL, they have to return to the junior leagues. So that's something that's an issue that's been debated by our general managers time in memoriam forever, and there's a lot of differing opinions about it. We have talked about it with the Players Association across the table. I have given the CHL a heads up that we're talking about it. I expect we'll have continued dialogue if and when appropriate.
We have a question that was emailed to us from Cam Tate, who's right over there on the right in the third row. Can you talk about inclusion in hockey, particularly as it pertains to disabled players and the future of that?
Well, we've been very supportive of the game in all of its forms, including with respect to players with disabilities who try to play the game. We do that with some of the post-military organizations as well. Our goal has always been and continues to be welcoming and inclusive, no matter who you are and what you believe, and that's something we remain committed to.
And we organized a sled hockey tournament game in connection with Four Nations Face-Off, which was very well received, raised a lot of money for both organizations. We're very supportive of sled hockey.
Thanks, Cam. Questions? Thank you. Second row, Frank.
Frank Saravalli, Daily Face-Off. Gary, given the interest in building off of the success of Four Nations, do you have any details to share about what the prior AllStar Weekend in Long Island might look like?
That's a great question, and we're getting asked it a lot. We set a pretty high bar for All-Star Weekends in all sports. I think there was an announcement today that one league is changing its format in response to the success that we had. We've concluded that whatever we do for next season needs to take into account that the players are going to be very focused on getting to Milan and playing in the Olympics, and we want to respect that. So there will be an event the following year at UBS, and we're still trying to figure out what we can do that will do justice to the level of interest and authenticity that we and the players created in Four Nations. So that's still a work in progress.
Go back to Pierre, second row.
Pierre LeBrun, TSN, The Athletic. And no, Gary, I'm not trying to push you into retirement. So.
We're gonna rumble?
No, I just want to make that clear. Having said that, here's one of your favorite ones.
Here we go again.
The league now at 32 teams, potentially 34 in the coming years. I continue to hear from club officials about the idea of a play-in, like the NBA has gone to reflect the fact that there are more teams in the league.
We didn't expect
By
this.
the way, we had a play-in. Did you note that 3 clubs' positions in the playoffs weren't determined until the last game that they played in the regular season? We think that what we have is working very well. You can tinker with things for the sake of tinkering with things, but that's not something that I'm an advocate of. And just like my retirement, you can keep asking the question because we respect what you do and how you cover the game, even if you keep trying to push your own agenda.
Back to Greg on the left side.
That was said with affection, not snarkiness.
Greg Wyszynski, ESPN. I can't believe I have to follow that.
Well, you can try.
Try. Is it your expectation we'll go back to a traditional draft format next season, a centralized draft?
You know, we've been getting asked that question a lot. Actually, that question started after the draft we did in the Sphere, because everybody said, wow, this was amazing. Why are we going to a decentralized draft? We went to a decentralized draft not because Bill or I or Steve Mayer or anybody else thought that was a good idea. That was what the clubs told us they wanted, and we responded. If after this experience the clubs say, you know what, on second thought, let's go back to the old format, we'll do that. What we do will be totally in response to what the clubs tell us they want.
Back to Steve Wino.
Steve Wino from the Associated Press again. I'm for either Gary or Bill. There's been a lot of talk about sort of the state income tax thing, and obviously every league deals with this from market to market. Is it something that could be part of CBA talks, or is it something that's just the landscape of reality that teams and players have to deal with?
Why don't you answer it, because you know I hate the issue.
So, I mean, obviously, anything can be part of CBA talks. I think the first step is you have to understand and identify whether it's an issue that you're concerned about. Certainly, it's an issue that some of our franchises have raised as a concern. I guess what I'd say is at this point we don't share the level of concern that they have. And what I'd say on top of that is these imbalances have existed forever. Like there's nothing new here. There are so many reasons why a player may choose to play in a particular location for a particular team, for a particular coach, that have nothing to do with the tax situation in that market. So I don't expect it's anything we're going to address proactively as part of this collective bargaining negotiation. Obviously, we'll continue to monitor, as we always do, issues in the game.
Any other questions?
Anybody else?
Jim Matheson, Post Media. Is there any stomach to increasing the length of overtime when so many fans hate the shootout and many of the players do not like it either?
I'm not sure that I agree with your data points, but at the end of the day, I think this past year, 72% of the games that went into overtime were decided. So we're talking about 28%. We believe that what we're doing now makes the most sense. To extend overtime risks injury and fatigue, and we don't think it's necessary. And I think there are lots of fans who demonstrate during the shootouts, by everybody standing up in the building, that it's an interesting and exciting way to decide some number of regular season games, not an overly burdensome number. And it's not anything that we would ever or have ever considered for the playoffs.
Anybody else?
Anybody else? We'll see you around over the next few days. We're looking forward to a great series, and thank you all for being here with us.